Lots of people joining this morning. This is awesome. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
There's Carol, there's Ann, there's Ed. Good morning. So great to see everybody. Welcome, welcome. My dear friend Nancy Pinto is on. I love it. Good morning.
I've still not mastered turning off mute. Hi, Carol. It's so nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Good morning.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And Rob, Brittany, Charles. Nice to see Bonnie. Great. Kylie. Thanks for joining.
Kylie's the new director in Amarillo, Texas.
I
Yay,
heard about that.
Kylie.
Congratulations.
Oh,
Hello, good morning.
Thank you. I didn't make him join. He's a surprise. So nice surprise.
Yeah, we
This
are.
is There's a virtual arm twist. I just felt it in the universe.
Hi, Susan Gilmore.
Hi there. How are you?
Good.
Love it. Good morning. Good morning. So we want to be sensitive to everyone's time. I'm sure there's other people who may be still joining us, but I think that it's okay for us to get started. We have the majority of the people on that we would expect. We had about 30 people register for today, so we may have a few who weren't able to join and they've already sent us emails. So we're recording this today so that we have the opportunity to share it out to the network. If you want to put your in the chat and let us know where you're calling in from today, that would be awesome. And today I'm going to be our facilitator. I want to say thanks to Caitlin Guest from my team, who is really helping us facilitate the actual virtual meeting today. So if we have any tech issues, she's going to help us out. I love that Laura's on from Algonquin. That's wonderful. That's in my neighborhood. All right, wonderful. And as we go through today, I really want you to know this is meant to be a community conversation. We have 3 special guests that we're going to feature today, who I will introduce in just a moment. I had this idea for a coffee with Carol, something that I've done in the past, and it really was beneficial to come together with United Way donors, friends of the United Way where I worked, and gather people together on a Friday morning, and we did a coffee with Carol. And so I want to make sure we share what is the coffee mug that you're drinking out of today with a beverage of choice. So I have my United Way Next mug. I see a few others. Barbara Edmond has hers. That's great. I know Paul has his. That's excellent. Awesome. It's fun to see whatever he's got. And I am a coffee drinker. But I will tell you I'm drinking water because I have had a significant amount of coffee already this morning. And I know that you all know that I don't need coffee to get me going in the morning, right? I wake up and I'm energized and ready to go. And a lot of that has to do with United Way Next and this community of United Way leaders who I have grown to love and appreciate. And over the last, it's been 90 full days. So yesterday it was a 90-day mark of being in new role as the president and CEO, and I am just grateful for this opportunity. So with that, let me talk a little bit about what you can expect from today. So today is an opportunity for us to really celebrate a little in advance our Thanksgiving holiday that's coming up in a couple weeks and express our gratitude and appreciation to our members who so generously support United Way Next in a financial way, but also in connecting and contributing as members. And so I want you to know that I feel very blessed to be a part of this community, and over the years have realized the importance of community as a whole. And as United Way leaders, all of you know, whether you're actively working at a United Way, you've retired from United Way, or maybe you left the United Way and you're still engaged in working somewhere else, that this community that we support, whether it's our local community, it's United Way Next, it's our state association, or it's even this whole network of United Way leaders, it is robust, it's resourceful, and it's an opportunity for us to really gather together. So when I think about Thanksgiving, I think about the sweet potato casserole that I absolutely love, the delicious pumpkin pie with extra whipped cream, and a heaping pile of stuffing with extra turkey gravy. And doesn't that sound delicious? Like, that's to me about Thanksgiving. But it's more than that. It's the family that will gather around the table, the friends that I might invite that are extra special guests. And today, I feel like we have 3 of those friends that I'm inviting to my Thanksgiving table. And I want to take a moment to introduce them. And then I will ask them to introduce themselves. Each of you, as guests of our Thanksgiving feast, are going to be asked at the end to ask some questions. So we're going to open it up for Q&A. So be thinking about what these friends are sharing and what you might want to know more about. And if you feel like you want to know right away, put your question in the chat and Caitlin will help us navigate that, and we'll see if we can answer them as we go. So first, let me introduce to you Susan Gilmore. Maybe Susan, give us a hand raise there. There's Susan. And we have Paul DeBassio. Thank you, Paul. And Kerri Strauss.
Hello.
Good morning. Good morning. We're so grateful for Susan and Paul and Kerri. And I will tell you that they are the first 3 people to be invited to a coffee with Carole, mainly because I had the opportunity to see Susan and Paul while down in Louisville, Kentucky. And at the gathering, I said, I have this idea. I'd like to bring our community together in November in honor of the month of November and Thanksgiving and celebrate the value that each of you bring to this community. And shortly after Kerri reached out to me, we had a wonderful conversation. I simply said, would you like to join and be a part of this panel? And she said, yes. So with that said, without further ado, I would like each of them to just take a minute to introduce themselves. So why don't we start with Kerri Strauss? Kerri, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Kerri Strauss. I live in northeastern Pennsylvania in the very rural Bradford County. We actually have more deer and cows in our area than people, more dirt roads than paved roads. It's a beautiful area, wonderful to raise 2 young boys. I was the director of the United Way of Bradford County for 10 years, and I had stepped down last year as sort of an early retirement, launched my own private consulting business, and recently got into some interim work as well. So I just served a 3-month role as an interim CEO of a United Way in Northern New Jersey, and just loving all the work that I'm doing with United Ways and other nonprofits. I'm really excited to be a part of the United Way next and to connect with all of you today, and really looking forward to this.
Thanks, Kerri. That's wonderful. Paul.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul DeBassio, and I spent 20 years of my career in the United Way Network. That's after being in the for-profit sector for almost 15 years. So made that career shift many years ago. Spent a number of years in Boston as the Chief Development Officer, and then did work with United Way Worldwide. I was the Chief Investor Relations Officer, or the head of fundraising there at United Way Worldwide, which got me connected across the network, both in the US and across the globe. And this opportunity with United Way Next is to just reconnect and stay connected to folks I sort of worked with over many, many years. So I'm glad to be still engaged with United Ways. I retired early as well, doing a little bit of consulting. The way I think of my time, my old work week, it's 20% work. I do some consulting. It's been with local United Ways, mainly to this point. I spend 40% of my time on volunteer activities, one of which is here at United Way Next. And then 40% of my time is outdoors. I hike, I ski, I kayak, I snowshoe, I do anything possibly outdoors, which I didn't have a lot of time for when I was working at United Way. So that's sort of how I'm splitting my time today.
Thank you, Paul. Susan.
Hey, everybody, it's good to see you. And so many of you I know from various parts of my career with United Way. I'm currently living in Albany, New York, and we ended up here when I retired because of my grandchildren. And I started out in Amarillo, Texas, and I then went to the national office. And from there, I moved to the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. And I spent 25 years in the United Way world, and my last 5 years were with Family Wise, and I worked with United Ways all across the country. So if I hadn't gotten to know you from my state or national experience, I did get to know you through Family Wise. And then I have, since retirement, been involved in as an interim for a United Way in Midland, Texas. And the biggest joy of all was coming back as the interim for Amarillo, which is where I started. So love being here today and love United Way Next. It's been an incredible connection for me.
Wonderful. So I am grateful to Kerri and Paul and Susan for all that they've already shared in their introduction. I'm going to start by asking them some questions, and I may ask them all the same question, but we'll see how this goes, right? So this is kind of my first opportunity to call this like The View. The View is a talk show where you come together and there's people speaking and communicating and conversation. So, I've asked Paul and Kerri and Susan not to be afraid to ask each other questions or chime in with their own answers. So first up, let me ask you this, Susan, because we met through your time at Family Wise. And I remember meeting Susan when I went to the CEO onboarding at Worldwide, and she was there representing Family Wise. I actually have a selfie picture of she and I in 2018. And we took another one while we were at the gathering at Louisville, so we could actually do a throwback Thursday and have us both featured, together. So talk a little bit about your experience with United Way Next and what you've spent the last several years, 9 years, in fact, doing as a member and as a volunteer.
Well, United Way Next was a real such a positive experience for me. When I started out, I wasn't yet retired, and I had the very typical I had the typical reaction when Alice Thacker called and said, "Would you consider serving on the board?" I was like, "I'm not retired." She said, "Well, we're for more than retirees." So once I started, we really did go on the quest to change the name, change the profile, and be really much more inclusive than just retirees, because we had so many vibrant members that were active. But my first experience going on the board was a class that we partnered with National Council on Aging, and it helped me realize that the emotions I was feeling about being retired were pretty normal. It's not, you think in your working world that you're going to wake up and you're going to enjoy your morning coffee and life is going to be fabulous because you have nothing to do. You wake up, you do enjoy your morning coffee, but then you realize, oh my gosh, I've got to fill my time with something. And when you've been in the United Way world, you want to be connected to people. So that's what I've loved about it the most. It's connecting like-minded people. We all have such an incredible commonality about us, and it's just important to me to continue to have that forever. So many of you in so many ways have helped me out of so many jams or challenges, and you're a phone call away, and I absolutely love it. Thank you to everybody.
I love that. I love that you talk about the connections, right? This is a community and it's inclusive, and we're here to support each other, and we can, reach out to our neighbors from, across the same geographical area, but we can reach out across the nation, right? So you recently served, well, first of all, you went through the Interim Executive Academy training, right? And you served as an interim. Would you tell us a little bit more about that experience? And for people who don't know, we are a partner with Third Sector Company, and they offer this training for anyone who would like to be a part of it. So there's several people who have participated and are now graduates. I think we're almost up to 20 total. So Susan, tell us more about that.
Oh, that's amazing. It was an incredibly great experience. The Interim Executives Academy is several months, and it's a couple hours every other week, I think, if I remember, or maybe, anyway, that doesn't matter. It covers every part of being a director in an interim situation and helping a board really identify what they need in managing themselves, and also what they need in finding the right person moving forward. And they were a it was a great class. Their classes are between 45 and 50 people, all done by Zoom, so very easy to work it into your schedule. While I was in the academy, I accepted the interim position in Amarillo, and they also offer a board chairs academy. And it was, again, one of the best things that happened for our board of directors, because it gave us a common language to talk about and common goals and a common vision. And it really helped outline all that. So if any of you are considering being an interim director, and I think they're desperately needed everywhere, I would highly recommend the Third Sector's Interim Executive Director Academy. My belief is that when a director leaves, no matter what, they should bring in an interim. And the United Way in Amarillo was financially very solid and had certainly done well in maintenance, but the board had really lost touch with what their role was. And there's no better job than there's no better person than an interim coming in and saying, this is what's going on, and you've got all sorts of paths to be able to fix this, but let's get on the right path. And that's an easier thing for an interim to say than for a new CEO coming in or an old CEO leaving. So
Yeah.
it's a great experience to be an
It
interim.
sounds like you played a very critical role, and I want to make sure we take this opportunity, if you wouldn't mind. Would you introduce the person that was hired, since he's joined us today, and then he can be introduced to our community, which is awesome.
Great. I will be very proud to introduce our new CEO in Amarillo. And part of my interim job, and Third Sector really worked with me, I put together a proposal, and part of that was to head up the search process. And so we had a very strenuous search process, and we hired Kylie Murray, who was the exec in for the Red Cross. He had a huge territory, I believe it was 60 some counties, and he had worked for Red Cross for 8 years. But Kylie's also been a teacher, a minister. He is part of 3 branches, has been part of 3 branches of the service. So his background was phenomenal. And what Kylie really brings to the job that I'm so appreciative of is a love of community and an enthusiasm to do a good job. So he's a perfect United Way professional. So glad to have you on board, Kylie. Thanks.
Make sure you give us a hand wave, or you can come off mute and just say hi so everybody knows who you are. That's awesome.
Well, I just said hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? That's a, after 3 years of Zoom and Microsoft Teams, everybody's like, can you hear me? Is my so, but it's nice to meet everybody. Thank you, Susan. I'm just excited. I'm really, really excited. What am I? I'm 2 months in this week. And so I'm so excited. My morning has already been meeting with 3 different community partners. And that's what I'm excited about is just continuing what you guys are all talking about on these calls. And thank you so much for the introduction, Susan.
That's wonderful. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad that this worked out. This was not planned. So if anybody thinks we coordinated this, we didn't anticipate, Kylie being here, but we're grateful you chose to register and show up and be a part of this. And so welcome to the United Way Next community, and welcome just to the network as a whole. You're going to find it a very refreshing, resourceful group of people who really care deeply about community first. So thank you. So why don't we take a minute and hear from Paul? So Paul, I'm going to ask you a question about if you could suggest one way to help connect our members together, what would that be? And maybe talk about how you're connecting in this community.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the reason I got engaged is because of the, who was on the list, right? So it is about connections. And so my work United Way Worldwide, I staff the NPC, the Old National Professional Council. And so got to meet people like Bob Redmond and Ed Rivera, Cal Zaparo, and Susan Gilmore, all people that were sort of part of this movement, United Way at the time, Retiree Association. And so now that it's United Way Next, I focus on sort of alumni because I retired young. I don't want to consider myself a retiree. And so, I'm thinking, what's the point of difference that might be available to United Way Next? And that group of people that got me excited to join were all former CEOs. And obviously they all worked their way up into a CEO role. But I said, geez, there's a lot of folks like me who were in the network for a long time, but really weren't a CEO, but maybe a functional lead, headed fundraising, impact, marketing, something of that nature. How do we get that group involved? Because they've got a set of expertise that they may want to give back. So my whole thing about joining United Way Next was I also want to still give back, so no longer working at United Way. But I always felt like that job was a service job, service to our community, service and giving back to others. How can I keep doing that? And so, I think of the connections as being important because I just want to stay connected to people I've known and worked with. But I want to do more than just stay connected. So to me, it's a little bit about, how do you get these alumni engaged and bringing their expertise into today's United Ways, that might need that help. And so one way that I've done that we've done that, in partnership with United Way Next is sort of look at groups that sort of naturally work together for years within the United Way system. So I was a resource development lead. So we had our RDVP group. And so I said, can't we do a reunion, a Zoom meeting that just brings that group of people together? So that's what we did. We just had a Zoom reunion for anybody that was part of this RDVP group that we sort of managed. And now I've got this idea of how do we engage them, to give back as well. They're all off doing other things. They're not necessarily retired, but they're no longer with United Way. And do they have the ability to give back through this United Way Next, sort of what we're trying to do here. So that's what, to me, it's sort of doing these little reunions by group. I also was fortunate enough to be part of the Advanced Leadership Program, which was a great development program at the time. United Way Worldwide was connected with Mark O'Connell. And anybody who sort of retired from that, graduated from that, and has left United Way, we did a Zoom with that group as well. So again, we're just trying to find natural ways to bring people together and reconnect them, and then try to connect them to some of what's happening with United Way Next as well.
That's wonderful. I love that you're leading up those two groups. And, the RDVP as well as the Advanced Leadership Group, and those are going to be coming up. So if any of you have not participated and you were part of that and you want to be involved, let us know, send me an email and we'll make sure you have the calendar invite because they're coming up at the end of November and mid-December, and we want to make sure you have an opportunity to join. So Bonnie asked a question about, do we know if there's anyone leading community impact directors?
And I'd say no, but that's what we want, right? We want to get each of the functional areas to kind of begin to, and again, it's organic, right? This was organic. I just, I said, okay, yeah, I'll become a member. And then becoming a member became coming with some ideas. And, this is one of those ideas. So how we can organically find some folks from the community impact side. And then, I always think about cross-functional, right? I always think impact and resource development should be working together. But in this case, it start with the groups where people might have some affinity with each other and the work that you did while you're at United Way. So I love the idea of starting up a sort of a group for folks who really kind of came through United Ways with the impact focus.
And so Bonnie, since you asked that question, I'm going to assume that you might want to be a part of that, and I'll reach out to you and we can talk about it. You don't have to lead it, but maybe you have great ideas, right? This is what this is all about, is really coming together as a community and finding out what might bring value to each of you. And so we're grateful that Susan and Paul and Kerri can share a little bit about their experience, and really that helps us uplift this network. So let me move on to Kerri for a moment. And so Kerri, I'm interested to know a little bit about your background. I know that you worked at a local United Way, and I believe that when you started, you were serving as a volunteer maybe at your United Way, and then it grew into something bigger for a long time. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I think I have kind of a unique, almost like back in time experience. The area that I moved to in Bradford County here in northeastern Pennsylvania was predominantly manufacturing based, pledge based United Way, the traditional campaign that more or less felt like the way it was 40, 50 years ago, because I was with another United Way before I came to Bradford County. So I served as the volunteer center program manager for United Way of Berks County in Reading, Pennsylvania, which is a very large United Way. We had about 25 full-time staff. And then when my family moved to Bradford County, I reached out to ask if there were any part-time jobs at the United Way of Bradford County, and was quick to find out that there were no jobs at all. It was all run entirely by volunteers. And that's how it was for 40 years, which was also very unique, because I don't think a lot of nonprofit organizations exist for 40 years, you know, being, especially as a United Way, run entirely by volunteers. And so I had started by serving on the board of directors, and that lasted for 2 meetings. And then by the 3rd meeting, I was essentially putting together a proposal to say, I really think that we need to have an executive director and to kind of pull, you know, move the United Way forward. And then by that 4th meeting, I was hired as the executive director. And so, yes, I was the first executive director of United Way of Bradford County, and helped them quadruple campaign and create a Tocqueville and Leadership Giving Society and very strong endowment fund. And so, yeah, it was a wonderful experience, and I fully appreciate and understand the work that boards do and that really small United Ways do, because we still do have a lot of United Ways across the country that are run, you know, by maybe one full-time or full-time, part-time staff. And I do think that that's an interesting, you know, area. And again, to that point, though, I guess of what everybody else is kind of talking about is like, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like, we're all doing similar work in all of our counties. And whether you're a large United Way, a small United Way, you know, if you're in marketing, communications, and, you know, we're all doing this work so we can share and collaborate. And I think something that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned today is to always seek out a mentor. I think that everyone should have a mentor whenever they can, and also be a mentor when you're in a position to be able to, and do both also if you can. So I hope that's helpful.
That just dovetails into my next question. So, you know, I just want to say, I love when people proactively reach out, which this is so typical of United Way leaders, right? All of you on the screen are people who would reach out and say, welcome, Carole, I'd love to connect with you. And Kerri did that. And when she did, she actually said what she was looking to do was potentially serve as a mentor, and said that she had been doing this over the years and hadn't had really anyone recently that she was connected with. So I always take these interactions really seriously, because I know the minute that Kerri offers the opportunity to serve as a mentor, someone else on the other side is going to come and say, I would like a mentor. And literally, I said, just hang in there. So we had a call, and literally within a few weeks, I had this assignment that came through that somebody was requesting a mentor. So I'm curious to know, why are you passionate about giving back in that way? What is it that you receive as a mentor that others maybe on the call today have said, oh, I could mentor, but I'm not sure I want to? Like, what kind of commitment do you make when you do that? And you know, how much time is involved, and what value does it bring, or joy does it bring into your life?
Great. Yeah, I think it's a real win-win. It's 100%, you know, the more that you give, the more that you get. And I think that we all grow by offering to others too. And we've either been in that situation before, if we're new, you know, director starting out, to have somebody to help you to know where to look for, you know, the resources, and to be able to make those connections. And like I said, I think that as you walk through a process with somebody, by being a mentor, it also helps you to kind of maybe reflect back on some of the fundamentals and the things that are important. And, you know, you're continually kind of staying on track and touching base and making sure that you're current. And so I think that it's a great experience, not to mention that once people are involved in United Way, it's kind of like, it feels like your extended family, and, you know, in nonprofits in general, and people that give and care for the community, you know, it's a really great way to give back. And so I think it's a win-win.
That's awesome. So Brittany, I'm going to call you out because you just sent me a private message, and I hope it's okay. She was proactive and just sent me a message and said, I'd love to be a mentor. So if any of you have an interest and you're inspired by what Kerri has shared, I would tell you to email me, and I'll remember, Brittany, that you're interested. And I would love to talk with you about your interest, because it helps me when I hear from a member who's looking for a connection. So I'm going to use Kylie as an example, new in his role. He's been there 2 months, and he's got, fortunately, Susan Gilmore as someone to support him in this journey, right? But let's turn the clock forward. I mean, we just pushed our clocks back, right? But let's think the time change goes forward. It's next spring, and Kylie has some questions about fundraising, and he calls on United Way Next as a resource and says, hey, who in the network could really be there to support me with some fundraising strategy sessions? And maybe it's, again, I'll use Paul DeBassio. Paul's a fund development person, has a passion for this. And he says, yeah, I'm happy to have a couple calls with Kylie to really lift up their organization. Or maybe it's an Ed Rivera out in Albuquerque, or it's Deborah Bale in Salt Lake City. And, you know, all of you as members bring such value and can support each other. And I think it's just a great opportunity to connect and support this community. So thanks, Kerri, for that. And I believe tomorrow's the day that you have the call with this potential mentee. And she is a woman that is a brand new CEO 6 months into her role. And when she realized there was an opportunity to have someone support her, she said, I would love that. And after I had 3 CEO calls in the last week, and all 3 of them were so grateful for just the support they received on the call. So, we are a small staff. We could benefit from having some of you be kind of on the response team, maybe, as these new local United Way leaders come into their role. They don't necessarily need a full-blown mentorship in the first few weeks or months, but they might benefit from just having someone extend the hand. And I think that's what these smaller United Ways really benefit from within our community. So thank you for that. So Susan Gilmore, I want to come back to you, and I want to hear a little bit about what are you doing these days now that you're done with this interim experience? You've spent a lot of time this last year serving and supporting Kylie's team, in Amarillo. What is it you do by day now that you've got free time on your hands?
Well, Carol's setting me up for this. I have a new job. This is my 4th week, and I am serving as a lunch lady in our local school district. And I'm actually loving it. I go in, I tie my hair up in pigtails, and I put on a visor, and I go in my tennis shoes, because the minute I hit the door, I am hustling like I have never hustled. I told my daughter, the thing I've loved the most about it is I really always worked upstairs. I was in management or the CEO, and now I am the bottom of the barrel. I am actually part of the downstairs. And when the first couple of days, my reaction was, they need a union organizer. I'm going to get these people organized. They have rights. And then I backed off of that, kind of moved into, there's an awful lot of food waste here, and we have homeless people out there. And then I thought, you know what? Give it up. Just go to work, do your job. So here I am, cooking, cleaning, and the highlight of my day are those beautiful little faces that come through. I've not had a bad experience yet. They're all please and thank you, and some of them even chat a little bit. So it has been a lot of fun. The thing I love the most about it is when I'm done, I'm done. I go home, I'm tired. I just sit back and relax, and I do not have to organize or give away wasted food. So that's what I'm doing.
That's wonderful. And you're right, I did set you up for that, but I was so intrigued. So, I was someone who had made the decision to retire early, and my husband said to me 9 months after I retired, it's time to stop looking out the window. And so, he said, you've got to find something else by day to keep you somewhat busy. And, then this opportunity presented itself. And I always believe these things happen for a reason. And it popped up that, United Way Next was looking for their next CEO and president. And I said, I'll throw my hat in the ring, And so whether you're serving as a lunch lady or the CEO of United Way Next or whatever you're doing, it all brings tremendous value. And I bet those children absolutely love you, right? Like being around the kids just fill me up. So I love it. I love it. So Paul, what about you? So you have some free time. You shared a little bit about, you try to spend about 20 hours a week, maybe working, but then you're doing a whole lot of other things. So what are some of those things that are filling you up and bringing you joy?
Oh yeah, to clarify, it's not 20 hours a week. It's 20% of my old work schedule. It's really 8 to 10 hours a week of working. So sort of a day a week trying to do that. And the volunteering is probably the biggest thing. I'm on 4 different boards. I'm on the business advisory board for a local state university in my area. So that entails that same thing, seriously, just interacting with college age students, but just there's an energy in that. And so I'm a guest lecturer. This university actually has a sales program, which is fantastic. So I had a sales background, so I can talk a bit about that. But the professors also want to expose their students to the nonprofit sector. So I really focus a lot on the sales skills that go into fundraising and being in a nonprofit or being a director of a nonprofit. So I have a lot of value out of working with the university as well. So the board work and that type of work. But again, a big piece of it, my free time is outdoors. And so I also am a volunteer for trail maintenance for the Appalachian Mountain Club. And so I am on the trails a lot. This time of year, getting leaves out of ditches and cutting down, blow down trees and stuff like that. So it's the volunteer work. It's a very different type. It allows me to do some of my other passion, which is nature and outdoors. So yeah, volunteerism is a big piece of it, and just being outdoors is a big piece of it. I had originally retired young so I could travel for fun. I'd worked for United Way Worldwide for 5 years. I was on an airplane 48 weeks a year. And most often didn't go to one city, but went to multiple places, and would get home sometimes Saturdays, or lose a weekend even. So I wanted to travel for fun, and I just happened to retire right at the start of COVID. So I've not had the opportunity to do my fun travel, but we're beginning to do a little bit of travel as well. I was explaining to the folks that are on the panel here. We were on a few minutes before you all joined, and we just celebrated, my wife and I, our 34th anniversary. So we always go away somewhere. It wasn't a very big trip, but we drove down to the Berkshires, which is in Western Mass. I'm in New Hampshire now. And so, of course, it was going to involve some hiking. But as my wife says, I am a nerd, and more specifically, I guess, a history nerd. So we also visited 3 historic homes: Robert Frost's home in Vermont on the way down, Melville's home in the Berkshires in Pittsfield, where he wrote Moby Dick. Writer, so I like those kind of things. So yeah, we're doing fun things, hiking, but I'm also always trying to expand my mind as well. So travel typically involves education as well. So and we're trying to fill more of our time now getting away. We went away actually 4 of the last 5 weekends, and so we're starting to get back out there.
That's wonderful. I love hearing about the fun travel that you're having. And I also love the learning component, right? I think that many of us who went to Louisville, Kentucky, had a wonderful learning experience at, many of the excursions with the Roots 101 Museum, which were you on that? Did you go to that excursion? I can't remember.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wasn't that
absolutely? That was wonderful.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity. And I think, when I think about life, right? Learning is such an important part of it. And, when I was a kid and I was going to school, I wouldn't say that I always thought I was the best student. But what I've learned in my lifetime is I'm a learner, and I get excited about something and then I immerse myself in that. So when you talk about your experience in working the trails and doing this, whatever, you're grooming them and preparing them, I'm curious to know, are you involved? Is there snowmobiling up in your area, and are the trails used for any of that type of winter activity?
There are a lot of areas I hike are near some of those snowmobile trails, but the volunteer work is with the Appalachian Mountain Club, so there's no mechanical, snowmobiles or bikes or anything on their trails. So it's a little bit different there, but there's a lot of that up here in New Hampshire, and so I do have a brother-in-law who has got a couple snowmobiles, so I do get out a little bit on that. But I'm more just on people power. I kayak. I don't own a boat. I live on a lake, but I kayak only. So so I'm more people power.
I love that. Well, it's excellent activity, right? Get out and do something you enjoy, and it's good physical activity. And like Susan said, working as the lunch lady, she's never worked harder in her life. The physical activity is really great. So if you can put in your best 4 hours of physical activity a day, either hiking the Appalachian Mountains and cleaning up on the trails, or serving as the lunch lady, it gets it done, right? And that's really key for all of us. And activity is important for us no matter what age we are. So, all right, well, moving along to Kerri. What is it that you have been doing that, has really been filling you up at this phase of life and bringing you joy?
Well, I've been doing some interim work, and I've been doing a lot of consulting work. I've been offering some workshops through Zoom, and a lot of them are still in person also, that are kind of just on an individual basis. I travel a little bit too, but I also, like I said, do some on Zoom. I've been doing a lot of impact leadership workshops. I see that leadership is definitely needed in the nonprofit community. And another workshop that's been really popular this year is passion without burnout. And so this whole idea of kind of like never stop learning. That's something that I share at every single one of my workshops, is that this, this trend used to be that like you graduate high school or graduate college and then no more classes. And it's like, no, especially nowadays with, YouTube, and there's always ways to learn. And the more that we continue to learn and expand and grow, that helps us to become leaders also, and it helps us to impact our community in different ways. And so I've been filling my time a lot with that, and just kind of being involved in a lot of different things. So yeah, that's what I've been up to.
That's wonderful. And you have children, right?
Yes, I
So I
do. 2 teenage boys.
Yeah, you're a busy mom as well, right?
Mhm.
So
Right.
what are some of the activities that they're involved in that you have, you're a part of that?
Oh, a little bit of everything. So they're busy with school. They're both on National Honor Society, and helping them explore their career paths, so what they're interested in. College tours, we're heavily involved with. And then I have one son that does soccer and another one that's cross country, and he's also an ultra runner. And we were kind of talking offline before we started today that he's heading out to do the Maryland Appalachian Trail, because we've already done all of Pennsylvania and parts of Vermont and New Hampshire. And so, yeah, so I think we have another nature enthusiast in the works there too. So yes, we do a lot of activities outside. I know my kids will be off to college soon. And so I'm really happy to have this kind of freedom that I have with my work, to be able to schedule my time around their schedule. Because, it's really important that I get to be there for them and enjoy this time before they are off on their own as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. My 3 sons are grown. They're all out of the house. My husband, always lived for this moment when we'd be empty nesters. And I remember that first 90 days that my youngest was out of the home was really the hardest time for me. And then once he was gone and he came back and his clothes were laying on the floor, I realized how grateful I was that I was an empty nester. and I didn't have to worry about some of the cleanup that comes with being a mom, right? So that's wonderful. So we have a few minutes before we're going to open it up for Q&A. And since we're on this theme of it's Thanksgiving holiday is around the corner, and we're kind of celebrating with our, United Way Next family and friends around this table. Why don't Susan, Paul, and Kerri, if you want to share 1 or 2 things, either that you're grateful for, or maybe a memory of this time of year for you that you'd like to just share with the group. And so maybe we'll go back to Susan for that.
Oh gosh, I feel like I have so much to be grateful for. I think I'm not being cute about this. I think one of the things I'm most grateful for is that we finally transitioned from the United Way retirees to United Way Next. That was a huge leap for us this year, and it has been years in the making. And I am very thankful to Barbara Edmond for leading the branding charge. And we know we have a lot of work to do, but staying in touch with all of us together is what I'm most thankful for. And we wanted to expand that beyond retirees into all of you professionals that have either are still committed or have been committed to the United Way, because there's something like-minded about us. I said that earlier, but it's really true. There's something about community that is at the depth of our hearts. So that's what I'm most thankful for, that we're now United Way Next.
That is a perfect United Way Next, like testimonial. I love it. Thank you. And like-minded community, right? I think Barbara Edmond has said this to me before. There is something unique about the group of people who gather within this community of United Way Next. And when you come together with people who are like-minded, you can talk about things openly. And it's not the same as when you're maybe just talking to a friend or a neighbor or another community member. And so it's like we get it, right? We get what's going on in the community of United Way. And that doesn't mean you have to be someone who's been in the network for 25, 30, 40 years. You could be simply in the network for a year, 2, 3, or 4. And I was in the network for 5. And I feel like, this is a really important community for me. And I'm, somebody might say I get paid to say that, but that's really in my heart, how I feel. So thank you for sharing that. Paul, how about you?
Yeah, so I'll answer 2 things. One is something being grateful, and then one is sort of just this time of year and what it means to me. So for being grateful, 18 months ago, I actually had already been retired and thought I'd get out of the rat race early enough, but suffered a major or massive, as they call it, heart attack. So I am grateful to be here. It's grateful to be here every day and this, still be around and still be active. So so that's sort of on a grateful side. But I live in New Hampshire, and I live on a lake, and I'm living in the mountains. And my connection to this area was that this is where my mom grew up and where my grandparents have a farmhouse. They've since passed. It's still in our family. It's only about 15 minutes from where I live now. And our Thanksgivings were always at the farmhouse. And I always remember as a kid that it had snowed, and we went out the day after Thanksgiving and trudged through snow and cut down our Christmas trees and brought them back to Massachusetts. And then it never snowed at Thanksgiving in Massachusetts. I thought maybe I must have just imagined that it snowed. Now that I've been living in New Hampshire for 8 years, it has snowed 5 of the last 8 Thanksgivings. So it snows in New Hampshire. I love it. To me, it's the beginning of the whole holiday season. And it's just part of my childhood of spending every Thanksgiving at a farmhouse. And now I get to actually live that as well. So that's sort of my ingrained memory is being here. And so it's just great that I get to live that now.
That's great. I'm like smiling super big because I have similar fond memories of like going to northern Wisconsin, and there was snow, and the main street in the community where my mom grew up was always decorated for Christmas. And as kids, we'd drive down Main Street and be so excited and wake up Thanksgiving morning looking out the window of my grandmother's home, and the rooftops had snow on it. As a child, you just have this fond memory because you just want to get out in that snow. But also important, and I want to make sure I mention, is just our health, right? That health is so important. Without it, what is there, right? And so I'm grateful, Paul, that you're here, and I'm grateful you're okay, right? So important. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
How about you?
I'm sorry, I cut out for a second. Did you say Kerri?
Yeah, so Kerri, how about you? Your memory of Thanksgiving, or what you're grateful for?
Yeah, so of course, Thanksgiving, I think it's a wonderful time that everyone usually prioritizes family, and unfortunately maybe doesn't happen as much throughout the year. So I feel like the upcoming holiday season is just a great way, for Thanksgiving, everyone to be together. And it's always been a time, for me with extended family as well, and not just one day, but kind of multiple days of visiting, with aunts and uncles and grandparents and cousins. And so I'm very much looking forward to that, and really grateful also for United Way Next. When I had stepped down as the executive director last year of a United Way, I knew well, it wasn't even called United Way Next yet, but the United Way Retirees Association. And I just kind of thought, oh, I'll get involved in this. It'll be a way for me to kind of maybe stay connected and to, continue to learn. And I didn't realize, I guess, looking back on that experience now for the past year, of just how really beneficial it would be. So for example, I'm now enrolled in the class for the Interim Executives Academy, and only have about 2 more weeks, I guess, left in that. We've been meeting weekly on Zoom. It has been wonderful, as Susan had mentioned, and I highly recommend it to others. And so I think just, the more that we learn from one another, the more ideas that we share, and just, you never quite know, I guess, what doors are going to open. So I'm really thankful for all that, and thankful for the connections, and also thankful that I was willing to kind of make this career change as I did, because I think that sometimes I saw a quote yesterday that kind of reminded me of this, that we might get consumed with kind of making a living, that we forget to really make a life. And so, we really have to live our lives and prioritize what's important. And so I'm really thankful for all that this year.
That's a great reminder for all of us, right? Live your life and not get caught up in just making a living and in having opportunities. So as an alumni of the United Way, you've stepped out on your own to do this entrepreneurial venture, and maybe you were hesitant to do so. And I bet there's a whole lot of people that maybe aren't on today, but will be listening into this later because they're busy working today and they're not able to join, that have that same dream, that same idea of, I would love to do something else, kind of what's next for me. And that's what this community provides, is really the opportunity to come together and talk about that. What's next? I never imagined I was going to go back to work. And then here I feel I've been called to serve United Way Next in this role. And it's a wonderful opportunity. So, well, I want to open it up. I want to see what questions we have. If you have a question, you want to put it in the chat, or just unmute yourself, introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what question you might have. I see some smiles. I'm going to assume that people have questions. So Rob Mackey.
Hi, Carol. Rob Mackey, McPherson, Kansas, 25 years, retired February. The interim executive training, is there a charge for that?
Yes. So who wants to take that question? Kerri or Susan?
I can take it because I can also plug United Way Next for that connection as well, because I believe there's a discount offered if you're a member of United Way Next to participate in the Interim Leadership Academy. And I highly recommend it. It's really top quality.
And do you have an idea of the cost? I should know this off the top of my head, but I don't know the exact number anymore.
I think the total was around $695, but with the discount, it's closer to like $450.
Right. I think that's about right. Yeah, somewhere right in there.
And
And
I think-
I really have known of a couple people that have also applied for a scholarship and gotten it. So that's a possibility.
Is there extra credit if you've already been an interim executive? I got on the job training with mine. So,
Well, that's what's so funny, Rob, because I started my interim career in Midland, Texas, and it was a good experience, but man, there were so many gaps for me. So when Amarillo talked to me, I said, no, not interested until I get through the academy, because I knew from experience with other United Way professionals that I had talked to, they were incredibly enthusiastic about it. And so in Amarillo, they ended up, I did both at the same time at their what do you call it? At their approval, I did both at the same time. So I would most definitely, you don't get credit for it, but man, it is really worth your time and energy.
sounds really good. I know that I did my stint in Lawrence, Kansas, and it was supposed to be 3 or 4 months, and they went through the whole process and didn't hire anybody. So I got ended up doing 8 months. It was a fantastic experience. Also, some of the strangest things that have ever happened to me in the United Way system. I went through that. It was running a human services center of 16 other nonprofits under one roof. And so being a landlord as well as being the exec, it was fascinating. I wouldn't have traded it for anything.
It's awesome. And I'm happy to, when we have our call, I can get you that information so that you have it. And we can even, as a follow-up to this today, as part of the email that Caitlin sends out with the recording, we can include a link that talks about the Interim Executive Academy for anybody who may have interest in that as well. Just, so that you've all got that information at your fingertips. Barbara Edmond, I saw that you came off mute, so I'm assuming you may have a question.
I don't really have a question, just I'm just was thinking how grateful I am, and grateful for all of you on the screen, and it's just been helpful today. I think that the biggest thing, and our speakers have all alluded to this, is the opportunity to have intentional balance in your life, and to wake up every morning and decide, what is it I want to do today? And the days are very busy, but I think that's the most exciting thing. It's not that you don't have anything to do. You have more than enough to do, and you have to start saying no, which is an issue sometimes, but it's a joyful busy, because I can go from doing board work to working with my local lake association. So it's all environmental stuff, which we never really got to do through United Way. And on Friday, I'm helping construct wood and plastic window inserts to help people keep their houses warm during the winter. So hands-on, using a drill, all that kind of stuff. So it's just a joyful day. And the learning, Carol knows I'm just coming off of a 10-day cruise that was full of learning and adventure. And so it's great. It's great to have that balance.
Yeah, that's why balance is so important. And I'm grateful that you would highlight that for all of us, just to keep that in mind. So thanks, Barbara. For those of you who don't know, Barbara Edmond is our current incoming chair for the United Way Next board. And after January 1, will be the board chair. So we get to be a team and work together, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, and thanks you all for joining today. And we hope you keep coming by and helping us make this wonderful organization even better.
Yeah, wonderful. Brittany, you have a question.
I do. So I don't know if I'm in the wrong Zoom meeting. I'm not an executive director or an interim, but I am a director of development. My CEO sat in, I think last time, and emailed me and said, you're going to love this group, attend it next month. Is there any sort of training like that? I'm a director of development. I'm new to nonprofit and this position, and I'm trying to sort of learn on the job, but it would be great if there was something with people who have kind of been in this position.
Yeah, so Paul, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that. And so, Brittany, I'd love to have a conversation with you just to kind of get to know your situation and maybe try to help you find the resources. So when I worked at United Way Worldwide, we created a whole set of great resource development resources for the network, but it's impossible to find it, right? Or it's hard to find it. And so, it is good to have as someone's new to just someone to show you where to look, right? So I'd be willing to do that. And one of the things we're looking to do is how do we formalize some of this idea of mentorship, right? And so one of the other former members of the board here at United Way Next, John, is actually creating a faculty that's focused around plan giving, major giving, endowments. So Ann Fox, who's on here, is one of those folks that's going to be in this faculty. So we're really trying to actually build out the bench, right? So that as folks come into the network, there is opportunities and there are vehicles and webinars and things like that that you can join and really learn from some peers. So we're not quite there yet for a lot of things, but I certainly would be able to help out on the RD side with you. So yeah, email me, we'll connect. I'd love to chat with you.
Thanks.
Yeah, and if you want, Brittany, since you're already going to email me about possibly the mentorship piece, I'll just make that introduction in an email to Paul to make it easy for you, okay? That'd be great. Okay, so we're nearing the end of our time together, and I want to be able to do a couple announcements, but I just want to make sure, do we have one last question that we can take? Bonnie?
I just want to know, with the information you're sending on the academy, is there is it a scheduled, like it starts from this time to this time, and when's the next class start?
That's a great question. So there is a class coming up after the new year. I believe it's like the first Wednesday in February, and I'm just going off my memory on that, but we'll make sure that you have that information. I've written some notes on my paper as you guys have been talking so that I make sure, specifically you get what you need. So I'm writing your name and I'll make sure that you've got it, so if that's of interest. We also, so everyone knows, we do promote the Interim Executive Academy and other support services to the local United Way as well as our members on social media. If you have not joined our LinkedIn community, we have a LinkedIn page. If you have a LinkedIn profile, you can join that, and we regularly post information. We also have a newsletter that we've now started sending out as an electronic newsletter, but in the newsletter, we often have dates and events and activities coming up, so watch that. And then Caitlin has been the one behind the scenes making sure we send out email communication as events and things are coming up. So be watching that in the next few months as 2023's programs and services and activities unravel, so that you'll be aware of that. And then the last thing I want to mention is next week we have a history hangout with Dick Aft on Wednesday, the 16th from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. And so if you're interested in United Way history, we've got a variety of people that will be on that panel. And that will be the last history hangout for this year. In fact, it likely will be the last formal program opportunity for the year. So come along and join us on that. And without any further ado, is there anything else that Susan, Paul, or Kerri want to say before we wrap this up?
Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah, just great seeing everyone.
I agree.
Likewise.
Thanks so much. Keep on coming. These friends are who will help you out of all the rough times. Take care.
I want to show all of you a couple things. I don't know if you can see this. Let's see. Can you see this?
Yep, if you put it in front of you.
This is my little grandson, Emerson. So I most likely will spend Thanksgiving with him. And these are my two little granddaughters that I visited in Germany back in August. And many of you know I went on a trip to Germany after I started. So these three are the apple of my eye and such a blessing in my life. And so I am grateful to be a grandmother. So I just want to say thanks again to Susan, Paul, and Kerri, and to each of you joining us today. Welcome, Kylie, to your new role. to everybody who mentioned your interest, Bonnie and Brittany and Bob, just getting connected in different ways. Anne, with your interest in the Interim Executive Academy, we're grateful to have you on this team as members. If you aren't a member of United Way Next, be sure to consider joining us. So have a great rest of your day, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Thanks.
You.
Hi, thank you.
Bye.